Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. He displayed a remarkable incapacity for manual work. Those words describe a man who became known as John of the Cross, but we've probably all known people like that. We all know people who are not just inept at such labor, but who also have no interest in it either. It certainly describes John of the Cross, and it also seems to describe his mentor in faith, Teresa of Avila. This week we are wrapping up 2025 with wrapping up our year-long series of considering and being inspired by the lives of faithful men and women in church history. The Church honors and reveres these people as examples of faith to inspire our own faith. This week we are wrapping up it all up by starting with Teresa. She was born in 1515 in Avila, Spain, and when she was 15, her mother died, leaving her father to raise 10 children. When Teresa decided to become a nun, her father refused permission, and she ran away. She entered a Carmelite monastery, which was large and open, freely associating with the world outside. Teresa fell ill and was bedridden for 3 years, and even after she was healed, she remained somewhat lax in her spiritual life. I guess at that point she had a rather remarkable incapacity for dedication to God. However, she began to experience visions, and at age 39 felt a very vivid sense of God's presence with her. This resulted in a life of intense devotion. After a few years, however, she decided the order she belonged to, that open, free order, needed reform, and she set about doing it. She formed a new monastery with disciplined rules and a strict policy of enclosure away from general society. She traveled throughout Spain and eventually founded 17 other monasteries following the same reforms before she died. Interestingly, for a woman so dedicated to isolation, she was known as a most attractive person, witty, frank, and affectionate. Which brings us to John of the Cross. He too was born in Spain in 1542 and was the third son of a diamond merchant who was likely Jewish and who died shortly after John was born. As a result, John was sent to an institution for the poor and apprenticed to numerous families who all sent him back because of his remarkable incapacity for manual work. Eventually, he worked in a hospital to support himself and took classes in a Jesuit college. He was a small man, less than 5 feet tall, who lived a life of extraordinary struggle. While he didn't want to work, he did want to spend his life in prayer and meditation. To that end, he joined the Carmelite order, the same one Teresa was part of, and studied theology and got ordained. He was sent to Avila to lead his first Mass, and there he met Teresa, who had begun her reform movement. Teresa wanted to reestablish the austere, contemplative nature of the order, not just for nuns, but for monks too. The followers of this reform wore sandals instead of shoes, so they were known as the Barefoot Carmelites. John promised to adopt the reforms and took the name John of the Cross. It wasn't long before jealousies arose within the order, and John was seized, and when he refused to recant his ways, was placed in a 6 by 10-foot cell in almost complete darkness for 9 months. He did manage to escape and made his way to a Carmelite monastery and spent most of the rest of his life writing. A good many of his works were started in that dark cell, and at the monastery he was able to complete them. Eventually, the controversy over the reforms resurfaced, and John was banished to a desert house in southern Spain. There he was seized by a fever and went for medication to a monastery where he thought he was unknown and therefore would not cause more controversy. However, the prior of the monastery complained because of the extra cost of having another monk, and not long after that, John died. His last words echoed those of Jesus on the cross: "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." John is remembered as a supreme lyric poet. You may also know Salvador Dali's painting of the crucifixion as seen from above the cross. Dali's painting is based on a drawing by John of the Cross, seen in a vision. Teresa and John may not have had a capacity for manual labor, but they certainly had the capacity for a deep and powerful faith. Find yours. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.